Hello everyone, this is Naveen Pramod, product expert from Zoho Books. So in today's session, I'll take you through the time tracking module which is available in Zoho Books, how well we can create projects against customers and the various billing methods available and creating transactions against it. Finally, how well the reports available against this time tracking module will help us in understand the projects created and calculate our profitability from those projects. Without any further delay, let us get into today's session. As we all know, we have a native time tracking module which is available in Zoho Books under say the dashboard time tracking. We will find these projects and timesheets. So the main use of these projects and timesheets is basically when you are a project related company, say you are into any construction business or any painting or in interior designing, you take up projects from your clients and try to invoice them accordingly based on the projects and get the amount reimbursed from the clients. So in that case, this time tracking module will help you create projects, understand how well the projects are progressing, and finally invoice your customers and get it paid. Let us look at how to create the projects now. Under the projects, we do have created a list of default projects. Also, we will show you on how to create a new project here. In the top right corner plus new project, you can enter the rudimentary details, say the project name, the code if any, and the description of the project can be given here. You can select the customer name here. One particular thing to be noted here is that every project is unique and the same project cannot be used against multiple customers here. For every customers, every project has to be created individually. You can choose the customer here and you can choose the required billing method. As I mentioned earlier, there are 4 types of billing method. The first one is the fixed cost for project, which is nothing but a self-explanatory. No matter how much amount of work is involved in the project, it is a fixed cost throughout the project. By end of the project, you can invoice the customer for so and so amount and get it reimbursed. And the next one would be based on your project hours. So as it says, the number of hours that is spent on this project can be calculated and you can invoice your customers accordingly. And the next two are the task hours and staff hours, where the third option, task hours, is completely dependent on the hours spent for every single task associated with this project. And on staff hours, it is based on the amount of time spent by each staff who's working on this project. Let me show you the already created projects to give you an understanding on how it works. So the first one would be the wedding photography project, which is the billing method is fixed cost for the project. Say in this case, if while creating this project, you will have the rudimentary details and updated here. The billing method is chosen as fixed project and the total project cost. So this is the project cost which will be reimbursed from your customer. Say if for this particular project, the wedding photography, we are quoting 10,000 rupees and we can include the budgets for the same. So the cost budget is nothing but the amount that is spent on the project from our end, from the organization's end, to get the project done. The revenue budget is the maximum revenue that can be generated out of this project. Also, you can choose the users who are working on this particular project. Say for example, if we add a new user, the users of Zoho Books will be picked up here by default. You can choose the required user and you can fix the cost per hour. This cost per hour is nothing but the amount that is spent for those employees. I mean the amount paid to those employees to work on those projects, which will help us understand and calculate the profit generated out of this particular task performed by this employee. Also, you can change this cost per hour anytime you want, and there is an option of effective date. Say for example, for this user NP, if he is doing his job for a long time and after a point of time his wage has been increased, you can change the cost per hour here and choose the effective date from, say if it is getting changed today, you can give today's date, so that the previous entries which was recorded against this employee remains the same and the future entries from today's date will get updated with the updated cost per hour value. Similarly, you can include the project tasks here. Say when it comes to a project, there can be multiple tasks involved. When it comes to this wedding photography project, you have contemporary photography as one task, candid photography the other, and the videos are the other. So each task can be created and you can log hours based on these tasks. Let us save this project. Now, once the project is created, we can record timesheets against the different tasks. Say for example, if you click on this log time here, the date on which the log entry has to be created is displayed. You can choose the project, and under the project, as we had seen, there are 3 different tasks. You can choose the required task, and you can include the hours spent in this particular project a task and save the timesheet entry. So all the timesheet entries that you create against this project will be picked up here. Similarly, when there are any purchase transaction or sales transaction, say for example, when it comes to a project, say in this case the wedding photography, we will have to send the photographers to the respective place. So for that we may include any travel expense or a meals and entertainment expense for those employees. So in that case, you can record those expenses as well here and calculate your profit including all these expenses that you had made, so that it gives you the exact profit that which is earned out of this particular project. So to create a new transaction, we have this option of creating sales estimate, invoice, retainer invoice, sale order and a credit note. Vice versa, say your expenses or even a recurring expense can be made. Say for example, an employee is traveling every day for the next 2 weeks. You need not create the expense every time. You can create a recurring expense profile and the entry will be automatically posted based on the specific time interval that you have chosen. You can create a purchase order, bill and a vendor credit. Now let us see how to create an expense. Say already we have created meals and entertainment. Now we'll create a travel expense. Let's click on this create expense. The date will be picked up here. You can choose the expense account here. Say in our case it is travel expense. We can choose the travel expense. Say we are giving him an allowance of 500 and you can choose the paid through account. I'm selecting it as HSBC Bank here. If you have any vendor details associated to that, you can enter that, or you can give it as out of scope. And if you have any receipt number for it, you can enter that here. And as you could see, you have the default customer name out of that project is picked up here, and the project name is also available by default. If you wish to mark up this particular value by a percentage, say for example, if you are marking this particular expense as billable, you will have the option of associating it to the particular invoice and get it reimbursed from your customer itself. So you can either mark it as billable, or if you do not wish to do that, you can uncheck this option. You will not have that markup percentage. If you are marking it as billable, you will have this markup percentage. Say for example, the amount is 500. If you are marking it to 10%, so when you are trying to invoices, the value will be automatically 10% higher than that of 500. So it's nothing but 550 in this case. And you can save the expense. Once this expense is saved, if you go back to your project and check out the transactions, say the wedding photography, you will have all the purchase transactions picked up here. Say in this case, both the expenses are picked up here. And the next one would be sales. Similarly, when you create the timesheet entries, you can go about creating a new transaction. You can create a new invoice where you will have this option of creating a new invoice in the date. Or if you have multiple time entries created, say from the past month you are working in this project and you want to invoice it by end of last month, say 30th of September, what you can do is you can bill up to 30th of September. You can choose the date and you can select whether the time entries has to be associated with this project, or you will have to have a single line for the entire project. You can show the items to be displayed, the project name, the project code, and if there are any branch or type available, you can choose them to be shown in the item level. And if you want to display the description of the project as well, you can choose it here. Also, as I mentioned earlier, we have created both expenses, say the meals and entertainment and the travel expense. If you want to associate that as well with the invoice, you can choose that. And even if there are any bills, you can also associate that, and you can click on this add option. When you create invoice, let's include all the required details and add it. Now if you could check, the details of the customer is picked up automatically, and as mentioned, the meals and entertainment expenses also included here. And if you could see, as I mentioned, we are given an expense of only 500, which is marked up by 10%, so it is 50 rupees. So the 550 amount is automatically picked up. And then finally the timesheet entries for this wedding photography is picked up here, and the amount associated will be available. With this, you'll be able to create the invoices as well. Let us get back to the projects module, and there's another option of setting up the account level budget. Say for example, you are working on this wedding photography project. What all can be the possible expenses? Say the travel expense, the meals and entertainment expense, or any other expenses associated to it. So we can set up a budgets for different accounts here. Say for example, in your case, this meals and entertainment should not cross a budget of 10,000. So you can set up the account level budget here, so that when you are running the reports, you will have an idea of whether the expense that are spent on this particular project is within our budgeted value or we have crossed it, so that for the future projects we can plan it accordingly and get it reimbursed from the customers. This is one such type of a project. Similarly, there are three other types of projects. Say, I'll run you through all the other types quickly. The next one would be the painting project, which billing method is decided as hourly rate per project, which is nothing but based on your project hours. If I click on this edit option, you can see the default details picked up, whereas the billing method is chosen as based on project hours, and for every hour that is spent on this particular project, we can charge up to 250 rupees. Similarly, you can enter a cost budget and the revenue budget, and here you have similarly you can choose the users and the cost per hour, and also the tasks involved with this particular painting project. Now you can save the project. Now in this particular dashboard, if you click on the project hours, it would show you the number of billable hours and the number of hours yet to be billed from the customer to the customer end. If you click on the profitability summary, it would show you the expense and the income generated out of this project. Again, if you click on this profitability report, it will directly redirect you to the profit and loss report respective to that particular project only. If you click on customize report, you can see that the project is automatically selected as a painting project. With this, you will be able to understand the profit out of that project. So the next one would be based on the task hours. The interior designing project, where similarly, if you see the rudimentary details are available, the billing method is chosen as based on task hours. You can choose give the budget for the cost and revenue here. You can choose the users, and similarly you can you can type out the project task here, or you have this option of import the project task from the existing projects, where if you have any task from the other projects, if you wish to duplicate them here, you can just click on this import project from existing project and have them updated. The next one would be based on your staff hours. If I click on edit, you will have this option billing method as based on staff hours. You have entered the budgets, and here if you could see the cost spent on this particular employee to get this work done is the cost per hour, and also what is the rate that we are going to charge to our customers to get the amount reimbursed is the rate per hour. Both these values will be available for this user, so that you can calculate your expenses as well as the revenue generated based on the timesheet entries. Now we have an idea on how to create the projects against this time tracking module and how to record the timesheet entries for the same. Now let us take an example. Say this interior designing project has an example, and get into the reports and understand how well these reports help us in reviewing our project details and how the progress of project is happening and how to go about it further. Now let us take a look at the various reports available against this time tracking module and understand how well these reports will help us. So the first report would be your timesheet details report, where this report is a dump of all the project hours time entries that is created against this particular project. All the time entries that you have given will be picked up here. Let us run this particular report for the previous month. You can even choose it based on the customer name or the projects or the tasks or the staff hours. In case of multiple projects against a single customer, you can use this group by projects so that it would show you one project after the other from the individual customer. Let us run the report for previous month, where we are considering the example of interior designing here. So in that interior designing, there is a total of 25 hours which is logged, of which 2 hours is non-billable and the others 8 hours are already billed and 15 hours are yet to be billed. Now when we see at the complete organization point of view for the number of projects created against this organization for that particular time period selected, we could see that there is a total of 53 hours logged from our end across the various projects, of which there are 2 non-billable hours. 23 hours are already billed to the customers and 28 is yet to be invoiced and the amount to be collected from the customer end. Also, it gives you a breakup of the date on which the time entries include, what is the task performed here, and what is the staff name. Other than that, you have the option of exporting this report in the desired format right from the PDF, XLS or CSV or even in the Zoho sheets, and you can share it with the required members, or if you want to share it with any other user of the same organization, you can use this share option where you can choose the user to with whom you have to share it, and you can set the permission whether they will have to view it or view and export it, or they can view, export and schedule the same. If you want this particular report to be scheduled and received in email at a specific time interval, you can use this report schedule option where you can choose the frequency of which this report has to be emailed to you, choose the start date and what is the time which it should be reaching you, and you can use the email recipients here. The email recipients will be the users of this particular organization. If there are any other additional email addresses apart from the users of Zoho Books can be entered to the additional recipients, you can choose the report format here and save this particular schedule, so that every time based on the frequency setup you will receive the report on the desired format. The next report will be your timesheet profitability summary. The main difference between the timesheet summary and the timesheet profitability summary is the profitability summary will give you the corresponding amount associated with the timesheet entries as well. Say in our case, the interior designing project has a total logged hours of 5, of which the billing amount is 1450. Whereas when we set up the cost incurred when an employee works on this project is reaching a total of 1500. So the billing amount is 1450 here, but the cost incurred is 1500. So that the profit is, so we have a loss here of 50 rupees. So with this report, we are able to understand that based on the amount of work done and the cost spent on the project, we have not arrived at any profit. There is a loss of 50 rupees. So the next time we can concentrate on this project more on how well to reduce the expenses or to increase the rate per hour and calculate the profit accordingly. You can further customize this report to different date ranges, or you can display the report either by the project level or the customer level. So if there are multiple projects against one customer, we can understand how well the projects are performed against that particular customer. Similar to the previous report, the export and share options are also available. The next would be your project summary. The project summary report gives you a clear understanding on how many hours has been logged in for the particular project and how many hours are budgeted to complete this project, and also the amount associated with the same. Also, from the logged hours, how many hours is billable and how many is yet to be billed, and of the billed hours, how many out of the billable hours, how many is yet to be billed and how many is already billed. All the details will be available here, and the corresponding amount associated to it will also be picked up. Say in our case, the example interior designing, it's a task hour project. The logged hours is 30 hours, of which the logged amount is 6750 rupees. This is the amount incurred from our end to complete the project. Of this 30 hours, 28 hours are billable to the customer and get it reimbursed, and the 2 hours are non-billable. So of this billable hours, the revenue that can be generated is 6050 rupees, and non-billable expense of this particular project is 700 rupees for those 2 hours. Now in the billable hours 28, 11 hours were already billed to the customer and 17 are yet to be billed. So based on the 11 hours which is already billed, the billed amount is 2650 rupees for this particular project, which is already received from the customer level, and we can invoice up to 3400 extra for this particular customer and get it reimbursed from them. Now you can even customize this report based on the customer level or based on the status of the project, whether the project is still active or inactive. The next will be your project details report. So the project details report is a report for you to understand how well the respective project is progressing. So you can customize this report, choose the respective customer here, choose the project against which we are checking it. Say let us go with interior designing project here. You can run the report either by the task or staff or both the task and staff. Let us look at the task and staff here. Let us give the respective customizations and click on the run report. Now as we saw already, across this organization for this interior designing project, there is a total logged hours of 30, of which 2 is non-billable, 11 is already billed and 17 is yet to be billed. The corresponding amounts associated with those hours are also picked up in the next line. Other than these costs incurred out of the timesheet entries, that is the employees on whom we have spent the amount, if there are any other expenses. As we saw already, there are a couple of expenses that we recorded for the meals and entertainment as well as the travel expense. Those expenses will also be picked up here. So with this particular report, you will be able to understand against which task in the bracket you will have the user who performed the task, what is the logged hour of that particular task for by that particular employee. You can choose how much is billable out of that task, how much is billed, how much is the billed amount, and how much is unbilled so far. Similar to the other reports, you will have the export as option and sharing option of these reports with various employees. So the next three reports, say the project cost summary, the project revenue summary, and the project's performance summary, are interlinked with each other. So the project cost summary will give you an idea on the cost incurred in completing the project from our end. The revenue summary is the revenue generated from the customers, whereas the performance summary will give you an idea on both the cost incurred, the revenue generated, and what is the profit generated out of it. The reason for having these three different reports, even that is a subset of the performance summary, we will have multiple users who are accessing your organization, where few set of people will have access only to the sales side, few will have only to the purchase side. So you can choose to give access for those particular reports only, so that they will have a track on their own records. However, they will not have access to the other admin data. Let us quickly look into these three reports. The project cost summary. So as I mentioned, the different projects against the specific time period will be picked up here. Say let us run it for the previous month. Projects names are picked up, the customer against which the project is created is available, and the cost from the transactions. Say when it comes to the interior designing, our example, we have 800 rupees of expenses recorded against this project, but this is not similar to that of the amount incurred by the time log entries. So cost from timesheet. Next is the expenses created out of the timesheet entries, which is nothing but 5,000 rupees is spent on the employees who perform the task in the project to get it done. So, but the budgeted amount of this particular cost for this to complete this interior designing project is 10,000 rupees. So if we could see from this report, the cost from timesheet is 5,000, cost from transactions is 800. So we have spent only a total of 5,800. So we can still spend 4,200 and complete this project and still stay within our budget. The next one would be your revenue summary as a vice versa of the cost summary, where the project name, the customer name, and the actual revenue generated out of this project is picked up. If there are any budgeted revenue, say in our case the interior designing, we have a budget of 10 lakhs, of which we have invoiced only 2,650 rupees for this project. So we can invoice much more to get this project done based on the quoted price. Now the cumulative report, the performance summary, where the entire project list, the budgeted cost, the actual cost incurred, and the difference in cost is picked up. And next would be your budgeted revenue, actual revenue, and the difference in revenue. So that based on the actual revenue and actual cost, the profit percentage will be calculated, and also the profit margin which is achieved with the help of this particular project can be available here. With this, we have covered the entire reports across all the time tracking options available in Zoho Books. I hope this gives you a clear idea on how well the time tracking module can be utilized at your end, and the reports will help you understand the progression of this projects and calculate it accordingly. Yeah, we have a question from Mr. Sampata Virkar. The question is, we are using fixed cost project type, but we did not get any report from Zoho which shows how much we billed till date and how much is pending. Please advise how to get the report. So to answer this question, basically when the billing method is chosen as fixed cost, the invoicing is completely based on the amount given at the cost for the project and not dependent on the number of timesheet entries. So those timesheet entries will not be available in any of the reports, because the invoicing is not based on those timesheet entries. So the fixed cost projects will have only the option to convert it to invoice and not based on the timesheets logged in. And there is another question regarding the quick view of that in the dashboard. For that, we do have the option of showing it in the dashboard. Let me show that to you. Kindly get into the time tracking module and the projects. Say for example, if you would wish to have this wedding photography picked up here, when you create the project, you will have this option of add to the watch list on my dashboard. And if you check this option and save it, if you go to your home dashboard, in the accounts watch list, you will have those projects picked up. In the project, you will have the billed hours, details of those hours, as well as the unbilled expenses will be picked up in the projects tab. So next question is, what kind of companies use project? Again, this is very subjective. The projects can be created against different customers and is completely dependent on the nature of your working. Say few examples would be a painting company or an interior furnishing company. They take up, when it comes to interior designing, they take up 2 BHK as a particular project. They will have multiple tasks involved over it. They can go about purchasing anything against the project. So in that case, this projects can be helpful. And again, it is not restricted to any sort of business. Even if you think your business would be more effective and it is easier to track using the projects, you can very well go about creating a project and having the track against it. And our next question is based on this project summary report, where it shows only the logged amount and not the already billed amount. If you could check in this wedding photography, only the logged hours and the budget amount for the hours is displayed here, whereas hours which are billable or billed is not available here. As I mentioned earlier, the fixed cost is a different kind of invoicing. So if you would want to know the billed amount already, you can click on this project. In the project dashboard, you will have this option of unbilled amount as well as the amount billed so far and the expenses recorded as well. So our next question is, how can we make invoice according to employee a particular expense in the project sheet? So when you record an expense, you have the other details and there's another option of employee here. You can manage the employees, add the required employee name here and associate it to the respective expense, so that when you run the reports, you'll have a track on against each project as well as the employee who with which it is associated. So our next question is, do you have to have project customer wise only? I'm into an event business, so can't I have event wise projects report? So it will not be customer wise. So as I mentioned earlier, every project is unique. If you feel like each project is available against multiple customers, then against individual customers the project has to be created more than once. And when you run the reports, as I mentioned earlier, you can group it by the projects, so that the projects and the customers below those projects will be picked up here. So with the respective project, the different customer name and the amount of work that is done against the customer and the revenue will be picked up under the respective line. So our next question is that in fixed cost projects, I didn't find a profitability report where we can find the overall profit from all the report. Can we customize this report? Actually, if you could see for this particular requirement, let me show you that performance summary report, where against this wedding photography, which is nothing but the fixed cost project, where the actual cost incurred is available, the actual revenue is available, and the profit percentage is also picked up here. You can use this report to check those values. So next question is how to enable time tracking module. You can enable that from the settings general preferences, whereas it is available from the professional and above plans in Zoho Books. So our next question is, in project summary, performance summary report, how can we generate the report monthly or quarterly? So the project performance summary report is a cumulative report of all the projects right from the start of Zoho Books till date. There are no options of customizing it to specific time period and having that displayed. So the next question is how to filter consolidated vendor expenses from the P&L. So we presume that you are trying to identify the expenses that is created against a particular vendor. We have a report called account type transactions, where you can customize the report and add an advanced filter for vendor is in so and so vendor, so that all the transactions against that particular vendor will be picked up in that report. Hope we have answered almost all the questions. If anything were unanswered, we'll be following it up with the email ticket from the support. If you have any further queries related to this or any other clarifications for Zoho Books, you can always reach us at our support email address support.india@zohobooks.com, or you can reach us at our helpline between 9 to 7 in the working days, like Monday to Friday, on 1800-572-6671. Thanks for joining the session. Let's meet in the next session. Thank you.